David, you have lifted up the extraordinary capacity and potential in adolescence for beauty and joy. And then you've also diagnosed the ways in which industrial capitalism and the culture in which they're being raised can distort and suppress those capacities. Yet you hold out the hope that this dangerous memory, this capacity that is still latent, can be restored, can be freed, can be opened, can be empowered. And so, of course, the question for youth ministers is, how can the church speak into this issue? How can ministry with and to youth enliven and bring forth that potential, draw them out of themselves into that experience of joy in a way that results not only in a gift to them, but a gift to the larger culture?
In answering your question, I'm going to take a step back and refer to the Christian Smith's findings. In his recent book on the dark side of emerging adulthood, he talks about specifically some of the effects of this suppression that we've been talking about of adolescence. What we're seeing is young people who are having a hard time having any kind of moral language that gives them guidance in making moral choices. Therefore, they have difficulty. Sexual promiscuity is part of this, drinking, intoxication, cheating on tests, those sorts of things. But also, beyond that is just, as William Damon says, this loss of a sense of purpose in life. It includes, political sensibilities. So we're seeing young people whose lives seem to be, and this is my term, disenchanted. Christian Smith raises this question in this book, whether what we're seeing is young people in the wake of modern liberalism who have nothing larger than themselves to help them make sense of the world. And so that really is the question that drives, for me, that drives the question of youth ministry. What is it? How can we re-enchant the world of adolescence and give them resources to re-enchant the world? And so there are lots of ways, and I think some of our other guests will help us with this. Fred Eady's work on liturgy is crucial for helping us re-enchant the world and providing this fund of metaphors and images that when we see other people, when we see creation, when we see situations of oppression or injustice, we're reading those situations through the lens of biblical metaphors and images and liturgical practices. And so I think that's all very important. And as a matter of fact, I think probably liturgy is sort of a really key aspect of re-enchanting the world in order for youth and all of us to see the shimmering goodness that lies beneath the ordinary of life. And so I think I'm going to say that just to start with. But I also think that there are that learning to see the holy in and through the beautiful in the world really, I think, is key. And Hans Urs von Balthasar talked about instances of beauty basically serving as icons to the holy. And he argued that beauty had two aspects to it. One was sort of the form, how all of the parts cohere in such a way that they're pleasing to us. But the second aspect of beauty, like an icon, he said, draws us beyond the form into the depths of the holy. And so I think if we can reclaim that notion, and learn to see in beauty a call of God into God's depths, an experience of the holy, I think that could be helpful as well. So I just want liturgy and beauty and all of its forms, our art And I don't want to. Hans Urs von Balthasar says in the modern era we've been subject to the distortion. It's an interesting term. He talks about the aestheticization of beauty, by which he means beauty has sort of been relegated to prettiness or its decorative functions. But in the earliest sort of Greek and biblical and early church fathers, beauty was a much larger concept that involved a sense of wonder. It involved situations of justice were beautiful, and so we, learning to see beauty in justice, learning to see beauty in and through relationships, beautiful relationships, lives that are beautiful. One of the things we saw in Adolescence in Dream Care, the book we were talking about last time I was here, is that as young people are making vocational choices, they are often compelled by seeing an adult whose life is beautiful. And they often use that term to talk about a teacher. I remember one young woman who was just seized by the image of her art teacher who lived a beautiful life, not just in one or two of its activities, but as a whole constituted a beautiful life. So I want to say beauty and liturgy to start with, but I also want to say, more specifically, learning to see God as a part of all things. The modern heresy has been to imagine that we can live in a secular world that doesn't participate with God, in which God does not participate. So I think that's a heresy that enchantment challenges and confronts and overcomes, hopefully. And so I'm thinking, particularly, I have a friend who, a colleague at Austin Seminary who works closely with immigrants coming across the border. And one of the practices that these people have is once they have crossed the border, they commission an artist to paint retablos, a panel that depicts their crossing, their border crossing. In almost all of these depictions, there is, of course, artistically rendered their journey, which has to do with their particular desert. Now, the desert that they cross is not only a literal desert. Sometimes the retablos have to do with overcoming an illness, God healing a child or something. So all of the retablos depict the person on a journey in the midst of some kind of desert crossing, but also in all of these retablos there is a theophany present, an angel, a saint, Mary, or God, a depiction of God, overseeing the crossing, overseeing the journey. And this is, I think, a marvelous practice. I'm still kind of pondering how that concept might be generalizable for our work with youth. But I do think, in general, I think it's important for us to work with adolescents in such a way that we teach them to think God in and through all of their journeys, all of their deserts. And so that, I think that is an important aspect of re-enchanting our world. So I think this can happen in youth ministry in many different ways, certainly through the use of art. I think the use of narrative approaches, drama, storytelling, the Christian practice of testimony has all but been lost in the mainline Protestant tradition. But hearing people tell the stories of their own desert crossings and God's work in and through their lives, I think we need to reclaim those sorts of practices for our work with youth. And I mean, I've only begun to kind of scratch the surface of what this means for youth ministry. But I think for me, the guiding rubric of enchantment is important. Raising the question of how we help young people to participate in God's work amidst all of life. So that's kind of my project. That's what I'm working